meeting. We have a great program for you today. We are glad you're all here. And let me check with our clerk. Tessa, do we have a quorum in the room?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much, Tessa. Now on to item 1 on the agenda. This is non-agenda item, public and member comments. Tessa, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
Yes, Chair, we do. We have 2 members of the public, one in person.
All right.
I apologize too, Chair. We need to do interpretation first.
Yes.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Announcement from interpreters. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are, click on the interpretation icon shaped like a world, and select English as your language. If you're joining via the Zoom mobile app, like your phone or a tablet, then press the 3-dot menu, then click interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Also, headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte de los intérpretes. Para hacer uso de la interpretación, por favor, desplácese a la parte inferior de su pantalla y encuentre el icono en forma de globo de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, como desde su celular o su tableta, entonces presione los puntos suspensivos o el menú de More en una de las esquinas y después seleccione Interpretación y después seleccione su idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio del inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, que es silenciar el audio original. También contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión, favor de pedir un par de auriculares a la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. This is a new announcement for this group, but it's part of SANDAG's outreach to accommodate people who speak a different language, and it's a good thing. So, all right, we do have 2 public speakers, 1 in the room. Is that correct, Tessa?
Actually, Chair, we now have 3 public speakers. Excuse me. The first is in the room. Dirk Ackerman, please come to the podium.
Thank you. Morning, Shoreline Working Preservation Group. My name is Dirk Ackerman from Oceanside. I'm a resident and advocate for sustainable sandy beaches. I've been following the progress of projects along the fragile oceanfront bluffs of San Clemente and Del Mar to protect our coastal railroad. The state of California has recently awarded SANDAG and the Rail Authority $300 million for feasibility and engineering options to move the railroad to a 1.7-mile tunnel to be dug under the city of Del Mar. I believe another option should be considered at this time. An engineered seawall from Powerhouse Park to the rail underpass of Coates Highway could allow the rail easement to be expanded to approximately 100 feet wide. This would allow for double tracking the railroad, for installing a paved bike trail and a pedestrian path with stair access to the beach. A 1-mile-long seawall could be firmly rooted into the clay substrate at the base of the cliffs and extend to the height of the railroad. Compacted gravel and dirt could fill in the wall between the wall and the bluff to create a wide, stable easement. Water seepage is natural and continuous along the bluffs. Seawall can be designed to allow moisture to flow into a living shoreline, which would be supporting natural vegetation at the base of the wall. I would like to see SANDAG and the city of Del Mar devote time and resources to consider this concept while the feasibility of tunneling is studied. It's conceivable that a seawall project like this could be built within 10 years at a fraction of the cost of the tunnel. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and commitment.
Thank you, Dirk, for your input. And for your information, there is a SANDAG team working on that project, and Danny VEEH is leading that up. You can certainly submit your comments to him and have them considered. All right, thank you. Our next speaker, Tessa.
Thank you. Our next commenter, Camila Rain, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Camila Rang from Del Mar. I would like to raise awareness of the enormous trestle that SANDAG is planning to construct across the San Dieguito Lagoon Inlet. This construction must have a huge effect on wildlife, but was somehow flagged free from any environmental impact report, only based on that it was good for public transportation and therefore worth the destructive effect on the lagoon. This trestle will only be needed if the planned tunnel goes through a portal on Jimmy Durante Boulevard. There are many other options and suggested routes for the tunnels. I'm asking you to postpone this trestle at least until we know what route the tunnel will take. It may be that the trestle and all that destructive work in the lagoon will be for nothing. SANDAG will soon present notice of preparation for the tunnel and start environmental and geological studies. Why not wait with the trestle construction until the tunnel route is decided? Yes, the bridge that is there now is old, but it will last for a few more years. There's no rush at replacing it. And worst of all, what if it is replaced and then just has to be taken down again in a couple of years because the tunnel portal will be north of the lagoon and the trestle no longer needed? That will then have 3 times the destructive effect on lagoon. First construct a new trestle, then take down the old trestle, then having to take down the new trestle again. Just let things be until the tunnel route is set. Another thing I would like to bring up, SANDAG has sadly been approved by the Coastal Commission to construct seawalls along almost all of Delmar's beautiful and natural beach in the name of protecting public transportation. However, the Coastal Commission required SANDAG to do some major mitigation for all the lost beach that will be taken away from the public by the Wesley built out seawalls and riprap behind. That mitigation fund was recently ripped away from Del Mar and instead allocated to bike path in Encinitas and Carlsbad, miles and miles away from Del Mar. I strongly request that you stand up for the public's right to the beach and for following the ruling from the Coastal Commission and swiftly put the mitigation money back where they belong in the budget for mitigation for lost beach in Del Mar. No mitigation fund, no seawalls. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla, again, and those comments would be welcome if you wanted to submit them to Danny V and the team that's working on the trestle and the tunnel. And our next speaker, Tessa.
Thank you. Our final commenter, Nancy, please go ahead. You are there you go.
For the opportunity to speak with you. I did send in the red dot, but I'd like to say something more, that I truly hope that you will not allow any of the sand that's in our oceanside littoral to be taken out of the littoral of oceanside and moved to San Clemente or other regions that are not in our littoral area. Studies are showing that if we lose the sand out of this littoral and our own sand movement system, we will never see it again. As we know, sand is a very precious commodity. As Kamala mentioned, we have a very visitor active beach in Del Mar. We've got 17 blocks of beach access with an access at every street end. So we're a tremendously public asset for the region, and to lose the sand that we have that's so critically balanced as it is now, to go to another place just because somebody doesn't like the sand that they first were getting, makes no sense. We need to protect our region, our sand, our oceanside littoral. Please do not allow the sand to go outside anywhere else. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that you're doing.
And thank you for your comments, and how the sand is managed in the littoral cell and in our region is something that's definitely within the purview of this group to review, and we are in the process of doing that. I understand we have one more speaker, Tessa, is that right?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. We had one late hand raised. Paul Richard, please go ahead. You are, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, it's Paul. Hey, thank you very much. Hey, by the way, I live in Del Mar and I am a proponent of sand restoration. I think the project that's happening in Solana Beach is awesome. It's beautiful. It's well done. I think a lot of us in the community, our main concern is when we saw the original SANDAG proposal, which is a beautiful pamphlet, well designed, has all the technical info showing where the destruction of sand along Encinitas, whatever, is. And then at the very last page, there's the SO5 borough zone. That's just a little blue box and there's no definition of it. So I don't think any of us were concerned about the sand removal when it's like quite a far off the coast because we all know that's probably not coming in. But when the dredger started coming in within a half mile of the coast, literally coming right up to the beach before turning, it kind of raised a lot of alarm bells. We personally feel that that sand, part of that sand is definitely sand that comes to our beach in our east-west flow. Quickly, let me just say, I've been trying to research it. It's a ton of info. I've been in touch with Susie Ming of the Army Corps of Engineer. I expressed my concern. She sent a document saying that basically 16 feet of water or greater, the sand does not come east or west. So don't worry about it. Like, we've already done the studies. The most of the east-west migration is 16 feet of water or less is what it shows. This last storm that came in brought in a lot of trash and part of a boat that's filled with barnacles. It looked like MH370 showed up or something. The trash on the beach was all super old. So my only question was, this trash in this boat, to me, appeared like they came from quite a bit off the coast. They've been off the coast for a while and it washed in one storm. How is it that sand a half mile out can't come in, but a big part of a boat and a bunch of trash can? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And that is something that this group has looked at. It's called the depth of closure, and sand that's out deeper than that generally doesn't interact with the beach unless it's dredged in. But I see Keith Greer's over there looking, and if there's something else that he would like to add on that, I'd give him the opportunity.
Just to remind you that we have 27 years of data for looking at shoreline monitoring. And you're correct, there's a item called a depth of closure, which means that there's an area based upon that monitoring that sand doesn't come back to the beach. It goes past it and it just stays stagnant. So the person who was on the commenter, he's correct. He's talking to Susie Ming, which is the project manager for the Army Corps, and that's the appropriate pathway. And I will be bringing back to this group the recommendations from our planning studies for the next regional beach sand project. And we'll talk about more about what the depth of closure means and the opportunities for offshore borrow sites.
All right. Thank you, Keith. Tessa, do we have any more speakers?
That concludes the public comments.
All right. Then this is a chance for any members of the group to have a comment if something's going on in your community or you have a question or a concern. This would be a chance. Just shoot your hand up and I'll call on you. If not, that's good. Means everybody knows what's going on and we have a great program. So do we have any planned announcements for you to make for us, Courtney?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So I did receive a notice of this meeting that's coming up at the Southern California Coastal Ocean Observing System and Central and Northern California Ocean Observing System and California Cooperative Oceanic Fisheries Investigations has an upcoming Ocean Observing in California, Celebrate the Past and Showcase the Present and Envision the Future conference. And this celebration will take place on May 14th through the 16th in San Diego. I'll provide the links with some important dates and the meeting follow-up for after today's meeting. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Courtney. We're ready to move on to the next item, which is item 2 on the agenda. It's approval of the December 7, 2023 meeting minutes. And Tessa, do we have any public comment on that item?
There are no public comments.
Move approval.
All right. Moved approval by Deputy Mayor Keim. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All righty. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
For the city of Carlsbad, Councilmember Luna.
I'll have to abstain. We didn't attend that day.
For the city of Chula Vista is absent. City of Coronado, Councilmember Donovan.
Yes.
City of Del Mar, Chair Warden.
Yes.
City of Encinitas is absent. City of Imperial Beach, absent. City of National City, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Aye.
City of Oceanside, Deputy Mayor Keim.
I was absent, but I reviewed the meeting and I will approve.
The Port of San Diego, the City of San Diego and the County of San Diego are all absent. The City of Solana Beach, Councilmember Becker.
Approve.
And the U.S. Navy, Jessica Curran.
Abstain.
And those minutes are approved with 2 abstentions.
All righty. Thank you, Tessa, and thank you for approval of the minutes. The next item on our agenda is item 3 is a consent calendar item that the item provides an overview of the competitive bid process utilizing SANDAG's environmental on-call contract to continue the regional shoreline monitoring program for the next 5 years. Before I call for public comments, do any of the members want to pull this item off for discussion? And if not, I'm going to ask Courtney or Keith to at least give a brief description of what it is so we all know what we're doing.
I can. Thanks, Chair. So as you all know, we have 27 years worth of shoreline monitoring data. The current contract that we have is about to expire this June, and we need to hire a new consultant before the fall surveys take place. So the scope of work was included as an attachment, the proposed scope of work, and with the addition of an optional task to add additional transects to the base program. This contract would then extend for an additional 5 years, so we'll be set for that time period.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion on this item or anybody want to pull it? Mike?
Yeah, no need to, thank you, Chair. No need to pull it for me. I just wanted to comment. I communicated with SANDAG through Courtney and Keith earlier before this meeting and expressed concern for our city. There's an area right in front of our shores buildings where the beach really seems to be getting narrower and narrower. So we requested that a new transect be added to the contract to take measurements there. And they've graciously included that in the contract. So I just wanted to point that out and also thank you all for doing that for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike. And what we're doing is the experts that do this, they identify a number of transects that they think will collect data that will inform us about the entire region, what's going on. And Coronado suggested adding one, and the conclusion was, yes, that will add meaningfully to the regional data. So we're including it in the program, which all of our cities share the cost of. And if somebody at some point wanted a transect that was important to their city, but not necessarily contributing to the regional data, we'd probably ask that city to cover the cost of that. But the Coronado one is there. And do we need to vote on this? We probably do, right? On the consent calendar?
No,
No?
it's just for consent.
Okay. All righty then. Moving on, next item is reports, and this is the good stuff. We're getting to the juicy stuff now. We're going to do item 4A and B, and so we're going to do this in 4 parts, or 2 parts. If you have questions as we go on, please note them, and we'll try to hold them until after we finish section B2, so that we make sure that we get through all of it. We are fortunate today to have 2 speakers from outside our region presenting on their research and planning efforts on shoreline protection and management issues. It is SANDAG's hope that we can learn from our peer agencies and share best management practices. First up, we have Mark Byler, the Executive Director of the Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment, also known as Beacon, who will present a short review of Beacon and their work in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. Then next up will be Makona Nova and Susan Broder from Orange County Parks, who will present an overview of Orange County Parks' current efforts on the South Orange County Coastal Resilience Strategic Plan. For some housekeeping, as I mentioned, this will be an A-B item, so hold your questions till the end. With that, Mark, welcome, and you're on.
So thank you very much for having the opportunity, giving me the opportunity to speak today. Beacon's very excited to share the activities that we have going and to, I think, foreshadow increased cooperation within the Southern California region around very common issues. As was mentioned, I am the Executive Director of Beacon, the Beach Erosion Authority for Clean Oceans and Nourishment. That's a mouthful. Beacon is a very interesting innovation in our region. Beacon is a joint powers authority that covers 144 miles of the California coast. We have the largest, I believe the largest littoral cell along the coast of California. We are 6 coastal cities and 2 coastal counties, the counties of Santa Barbara, Ventura, and the coastal cities that extend from Gaviota in the west to the city of Fort Hueneme on the east. I want to direct your attention to the map that I've provided of our landscape, only in as much as the science of nourishment in our region and sediment transport is about 97% of our sands originate from our creeks and our streams. and only about 3 to 5% actually comes from bluff retreat or bluff collapse. And as you can see from this map, we benefit by the fact that our jurisdiction covers a great deal of the coastal watersheds that supply the sand to our littoral cell. That's important because as we talk within our governance about policies, a great deal of the landscape that we care to manage for purposes of coastal restoration really exists within the structure of our JPA. Beacon was created in 1986 because in the 1970s, coastal erosion in our region was very severe. We actually, in the last 5 years, have established a science advisory committee at Beacon. And one of the scientists, Sean Vasutek, is one of the preeminent scientists studying the impact of sea level rise and climate change on our sandy beaches in our region. And you're probably all familiar with this quote and with this notion that between 1/3 to 2/3 of our beaches will be lost in the absence of increased management, which is one of the reasons I'm here today, because we need to increase the activities we undertake if we're to be successful to address the threats that are really here now, not threats that are going to come in the future. And I just want to mention a couple circumstances that you all also may be well familiar with. One is the Montecito debris flow from 2018. And most recently, the winter January storms from 2023, which you also experienced. These events, which we used to think as future occurring events, are now events. And we in our region are struggling to get our arms around the science of sea level rise and climate change and how it'll affect the preservation of our beaches. We think that's a common theme that you're also going to be addressing. We do a lot of different things at Beacon. We're not as elaborately structured and organized as SANDAG, however. But in spite of our more limited resources, we focus on a variety of coastal restoration, climate adaptation, regional sediment management projects. And in this slide, you'll see one of the pictures of one of our demonstration projects that Beacon's been involved with for some time, and that's the Surfers Point Living Shoreline and Managed Retreat project. And you're looking at phase one of the project that was actually finished in 2011. We're now funding and finishing phase two. But phase one of this project, which set back public infrastructure out of the hazard zone, has already survived one El Nino, two of the major coastal storms that have confronted the state, 2017 and 2019, and has performed extremely well. And one of the activities of Beacon is to show proof of concept. And this project is one of our examples of how to show our local member agencies that we can do these projects and have them be successful. So we use this project as just a learning tool for technical exchange within our region. I just wanted to quickly go through, I know I only have a few minutes of your time today, but I wanted to show you a range of beaches that they're not analogs to your own beaches, but they're complementary and they do reflect some of the pressures and strains that our beaches are facing. This is Goleta Beach. This is right in front of Goleta Slough at the Santa Barbara Airport. This beach has been heavily eroded for about 70 years, really. And we have a series of beach nourishment projects. I have this slide up because this actually is a project that's being done under emergency permit, was a project being done under emergency permit and is going to have some continuing activities. We struggle to make sure that when we have emergencies that we do full environmental mitigation and review of those projects. But we do do a lot of projects under emergency conditions given the storms that we're already facing. In fact, we have emergency conditions going on right now from the storms of 2024, and it's only March. But I wanted to emphasize that because we have a lot of dialogue in our community about what protection should we give to the beach when we do these beach nourishment and other nourishment projects. But I also want to mention that we are very involved in our marine ecology and in doing coastal restoration to preserve coastal resources that extend into the nearshore marine environment, not just on the terrestrial landscape. And Goleta Bay, which had one of the largest kelp forests in Santa Barbara County back in the day, is an area that we're experimenting to do new kelp forest restoration, because we know that in the absence of these habitats, we won't have the species diversity that we've had historically. I wanted to show this picture of Carpinteria Beach because Carpinteria Beach is particularly an interesting location for us. It's a very small city beach. I think it has 15,000 residents, but it attracts about 2 million residents, visitors a year. And we have nourished the beach, but not without controversy. So I like to show this slide because this is about 90 days after the nourishment project. If you walked on this beach at that time, you'd be hard pressed to have understood that there was a nourishment project just 3 months before that deposited about 75,000 cubic yards of sediment at that drop. But this is an important issue because the issues that we face are issues you face around not just environment, ecology, preservation of public use, it's aesthetics, it's behavior, it's practices, and we have to address all of those. And Carpinteria and Goleta are two of our very important beach nourishment destinations in our region. What am I not doing? The other thing I want to mention is we do a lot of coastal access projects because that's in our name. We want to do coastal access, but we want to do it in this environmentally sound way and in a sustainable way. But we have some projects that just I wanted to feature because we have incredibly growing beach use in our region. And we have tried to maintain that beach use over time. I mentioned Surfers Point. This is just some pictures of Surfers Point because we're an active retreat along the coast of Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. And you can see where we haven't finished the project, it's unmanaged retreat. And in many cases, we can debate the term managed retreat, but we're either going to manage these resources successfully or it's going to be done in a haphazard manner. And the picture on the far left on the top shows the current bike path at Surfers Point being continually eroded in the absence of us moving these facilities out of the hazard zone and giving the coast room to move and perform the ecological services that it actually performs. I'm going to just mention this quickly. All the issues that we deal with are connected. And one of the big issues is pollution and polluted runoff. And we know that our creeks and our streams act as our trash collectors along the coast. And so we have active programs to do wetland restoration as well as management of our urban uses. And then, not very good at this apparently. Finally, I want to mention two of our initiatives that really do directly relate to the activities here in the room, and that is our Regional Sediment Management Plan. We do have a Regional Sediment Management Plan. We have updated the plan, but we haven't revised it in the way in which we need with the most recent sea level rise and climate science, but we're working very hard on that. As I mentioned, 3 years ago, we established a 12-member science advisory committee. We need interdisciplinary multidisciplinary approaches to these problems. And although we've had really good science advice in the past, we didn't have a kind of a go-to group that incorporated these multiple disciplines that we really have to work together with. So we established a science advisory committee, and we now have a research agenda. And I was pleased to see that you have a regional monitoring program that goes back so far and will go forward. Because one of the things that we're doing now, I'll just go past that, is that we're actually working with funds from the Coastal Commission and the cities in our jurisdiction to establish a climate adaptation, coastal adaptation monitoring program. We've done a lot of monitoring in our region for purposes of regional sediment management, but it may or may not be the case that that's the right monitoring we need to do to address the threats of sea level rise. And so we're now under consulting contract. We're reimagining what our regional monitoring might be to address existing demands and these current and future demands. So our camp, which is what we call it, is a big focus of our activities currently. And we hope to share our results and display it to you as well. And we hope to benefit by your continuing regional monitoring because we will be doing monitoring. The question is what way and how we'll do it. And we'll rely on this study to inform our activities. As part of our study, however, we didn't want to write a plan. So we actually have some pilot projects that we're teeing up to do some early monitoring to see if that will lead us to decision support tools, triggers, and frameworks under which we could make policy changes as we go forward. And then finally, I want to mention that the Coastal Conservancy provided $50,000 to Beacon to do a study of integrating regional sediment management and sea level rise adaptation governance. So we'll be coming back to you all through probably internet surveys and some focused interviews to see what ways we can imagine that we could tighten the intersections between our historic regional sediment management efforts, and there are 11 areas in the state of California that have regional sediment management plans, and the new focus on sea level rise adaptation. And I'll make a snarky comment to say that regional sediment management is not the sexy object that it once was. Sea level rise adaptation, however, is a subject that is a sexy object. The problem, however, is that in the absence of sand and sediment, you really can't have nature-based sea level rise adaptation. It is an essential input. So in our region, we're arguing strongly that our regional sediment management activities directly support sea level rise adaptation efforts. And in fact, they're in the same locations: Surfers Point, Goleta Beach, Carpinteria. These are the places we're going to invest in and hopefully develop resilient plans going forward. With that, I'm not going to summarize what is actually in the study. I just want to forecast that we'll be coming back to you to discuss what are the opportunities to integrate these multiple values for more effective management actions. And with that, I'll just say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. This is a wonderful invitation. Beacon should probably have come down much sooner to talk with you all. And you should know that with your professional staff, Keith and others, we are in conversation and we are trying to increase our cooperation and our collaboration. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. And don't leave. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you later. And the collaboration between SANDAG and our group and Beacons is very important. We're all learning from each other. All righty. So next up, we have Makana Nova and Susan Broder. Welcome to you two, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you everyone for having us. My name is Makana Nova. I'm the Coastal Planning Manager for OC Parks with the County of Orange.
And I'm Susan Brodor, a Senior Coastal Engineer with OC Parks. Thank you for the invitation. When we first got the invitation, we drew straws and somehow we both got the short one. So we decided to tag team. So I'll let Makana start and we'll follow up and tag team throughout. So
yes, thank you. So my short straw first. Want to share with you a little bit about our hot off the press, the South Orange County Regional Coastal Resilience Strategic Plan. Then we're going to go into a few example projects for the area and then I'll close it out. So let's move forward first. So just first a little bit about the plan. I'm also having the big green one. Thank you. A little bit about our plan, similar to Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. We have been encountering a lot of coastal erosion in South Orange County, particularly in San Clemente and Dana Point areas. So this plan is specific to the areas, the geography, looking at Dana Point and south to the county line. From that process, for example, we manage Capistrano Beach under OC Parks, and that particular beach you see in the photo here has suffered a lot of erosion. There used to be a basketball court here, a beach boardwalk and restroom that had to be demolished in 2018 following winter storms. So through that process and planning for that property, we began to see that there is a need and a desire amongst the community to create a more regional collaborative approach toward coastal erosion and coastal resiliency. And so in 2021, we pursued the grant funding through the Ocean Protection Council, and that funding was granted, and we then moved on toward a process, which I will walk through in just a minute, but wanted to go into the process. There was a need to close a gap in regional collaboration. We have Beacon to the north for Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. We have SANDAG, who have been around for some decades. And you guys serve as great examples for Orange County, who does not have this regional collaborative at this time. LA County has LA County Beaches and Harbors. And so our goal is to really fill that gap and create that need, fill that need with a number of agencies to pool resources to address projects in a group way. So here's the process. It began in December of 2021. That was more of a kickoff process where we really walk through the different agencies through the processes and the issues that have been faced. So looking at coastal erosion, different coastal processes, so they could understand the situation our coast is in. Second meeting in March of 2022, examine solutions for retention. And then lastly, a workshop was held in July of 2022. And that was more of a stakeholder workshop. That was a sticker activity, examining different governance structures and funding mechanisms. So it's been a while since our last workshop process. It's been a long road that we have traveled through many drafts in this project. So kudos to our consultants here. We have Summit Environmental present today, as well as Anchor QEA, who's the lead consultant on this project. But we have been through a lot of drafts, a lot of time building political agency for the capacity to implement a regional collaborative. So this is the Cliff Notes version of the plan itself. We walk through a number of different alternatives for governance structures. The recommendation is really to proceed with a joint powers agreement, implementing projects through MOA and MOU. We also examine the possibility of joint powers authority, ad hoc committees, an Army Corps-led project similar to the Regional Beach Sand project that SANDAG is pursuing, and then, or nothing. Each individual agency pursues projects on their own and competes for grant funding along the way. Here are some of the funding opportunities that projects that the agencies examined through the feedback and stakeholder process. Overall, the feedback really showed there wasn't any major objection to most of these options. They wanted to leave all options on the table. The one there was some objection to was the GAD, the Geologic Hazard Abatement District. So that really has is been minimized in the plan, but all of these different funding opportunities remain on the table. We've looked very closely at a regional cost sharing framework. So participating agencies similar to the Regional Beach Sand Project here in SANDAG would share in costs for projects based on mileage or cubic yardage of a sand project, for example. We've also just touched the surface, I think, in looking at TOT or sales tax approaches. Not sure yet if we have the political will or community support for that type of approach, but it remains on the table. So really looking at this project, the plan itself looks at prioritizing future projects, and there was a lot of support here for sand nourishment plans. And so that's probably the top priority for Orange County is to look at sand nourishment and placement. And then from there, looking at retention projects following sand nourishment. And then finally, it's always important to continue to monitor, study, and maintain. So just before we implement projects or go into the planning process, we need to identify critical areas for erosion. I'm just going to touch on this really briefly, but this is something that the city of San Clemente had put together, looking at critical erosion hotspots in their region. And so this is just one example of many projects that are underway. I'm going to have Susan take it away from here, looking at some of the more specific projects that we have ongoing.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just please, microphone.
Apologize. Just wanted to highlight some of the ways that we got here. As mentioned, County of Orange operates and manages Capistrano Beach. Starting in about 2018, we started seeing some of that severe damage to our facilities, and maintenance was becoming quite an issue. So our initial effort during emergency permit requests was to install, hardened shore protection riprap. And the agencies don't look too kindly on that. So we tried alternate methods. We first started with these 1 cubic yard sand cubes that were placed at the south end of the parking lot to kind of reinforce the shoreline. We stressed the need that we wanted to still hold the line and maintain this area for parking, even though we lost some of the facilities like Makana mentioned, the restroom and the basketball court. We still wanted to hold the line because it is a frequently used spot. There's free parking, even though it's just kind of provides a parking lot, but people really enjoy that amenity. So we were able to got permission to install the sand cubes along the south end, also along a well-used bike path that protected a stormwater treatment facility. The sand cubes ended up not lasting that long, knowing that sort of these geotextile units are meant to remain covered and provide the last line of defense. Well, they were taking the brunt of the damage, so they deteriorated sort of rapidly. We still have the sand cubes at the north end along the bike trail, but those remain buried and are fine. The second alternative we tried to implement, what you see here is these 4 cubic yard geotextile units. They're still holding up, but our permit is allowing us to put in riprap as we follow on and as they don't hold up. Whoops, okay. Okay, so last spring, following the winter rains, we got a call from our partners at OC Public Works saying, hey, we have this sand in the river, can you guys put it to use? And we jumped at the chance. We said, yes, we'll please take it. So we hurried up, got our permits in line. We originally, through our permitting process with the Coastal Commission, had developed permission to be able to take some of these opportunities that became available, which we called the SCUG, the Sand Compatibility Use Guideline. We followed through with all the required testing. Everything was aligned. It was beach compatible. We partnered with our neighbor, who is California State Parks, Doheny State Beach, and we're able to truck in 45,000 cubic yards during the summer, and that effort ended in September. It's holding up pretty well, but I just want to reiterate, we wanted to take advantage of some of the low-hanging fruit and take advantage of some of these opportunities. So that's, so we were able to do that with the sand effort. In addition, as part of our midterm strategies for this area, we're looking at a pilot project, which is a nature-based shoreline living project, very similar to what Surfers Point is up in Ventura County. So it's planned to be a cobble berm covered by sand and native vegetation. We've been working very hard trying to secure funding for this. We did submit an application for FEMA BRIC, and we have been selected as one of the first nature-based opportunities. We are still waiting on award. It's been about a year that we've been still waiting on that grant opportunity. In the meantime, we've been applying for everything that comes up, just trying to get funding to continue that project. Or get it off the ground, sorry. In addition, in working to be able to take advantage of these small quantities of material that become available, our Orange County Public Works is looking at implementing a SCOOP program that's been drafted and will be in the permitting process shortly. And following on the continuing with the science. We do still want to keep the science involved in our decisions. And so some of the monitoring efforts that are continuing is the transect study that San Clemente has initiated, and also a recent study that was recently published by UCI on some of their activities. And I understand we'll be hearing from them at probably one of the next SANDAG meetings. UCI has also been doing some drone studies as part of the, I'll go back, but the implementation of that SAND project I mentioned through the city of Dana Point and funding from the Coastal Commission. And in addition, the county has a couple shoreline monitoring cameras at both Capistrano and Poche Beach. And just to mention further, we really appreciate the opportunity for extending your reach on the study. Looking forward to participating in the future. I know both San Clemente and the city of Dana Point have signed their MOUs, and the county is contributing financially as well through an MOU with the city of Dana Point. And so we look forward to continuing that collaboration with SANDAG. And I'll pass it back over to Makana for some grand dreams.
Thanks. Speaking of grand dreams, I have a few concept plans to share. Wanted to add that, we're excited to be part of this meeting here today as the northern portion of the Oceanside littoral cell. So geography trumps political boundaries, and we're excited to see that happening here today. So looking at some of our other concept ideas that are in the works, but maybe not funded. They're grand ideas. So we're working with the Orange County Water District on adapting the Set and Match GIS application that is in place in the San Francisco Bay Area, and using that exact same app, bringing it down here and providing an application to match source and receiver sites for sand and sediment in the region. So that's an exciting approach. They are also partnering with SCORP on that to fund that effort, as well as they're pursuing cost-benefit analysis for ecological and social benefits of beach sediment projects. And then lastly, looking with the Orange County Water District again at using their source sand at Prado Dam to potentially rail sand, partnering with OCTA to a regional stockpile, and then having that sand available during permitting processes, because timing does not always work in our favor as beach managers, to be able to then bring it from a regional stockpile site down to South Orange County. And this is my last plug here for agency collaboration. This is my Venn diagram. I call it the Blue Star Coastal Resilience Moment, where the different agencies are coming together. Everyone is lending their own specialty in the process. We have source sites, the water districts, for example, Orange County Public Works, who all have these different source sites available to them, Prado Dam, Santa Ana River, etc. We have receiver sites such as us here at Orange County, the County of Orange, OC Parks, state parks that all manage the beaches in our South Orange County region. And then we have other transportation agencies such as OCTA that have the potential to help us with transport of sand. So everyone's providing their own piece of specialty in that process to help bring sand and implement projects for our region. I call it the Blue Star of Coastal Resilience. Our LA County partners lent me this duck idea of, smooth on the surface, working hard down below the water. Just wanted to throw the little duck in there. So conclusions of recommendations from the plan itself are really to formalize regional collaborative, create a sand management plan, and then implement sand retention projects in the future. Just one more kudos to our consultants here, Leslie Meyerhoff on behalf of Summit Environmental Group. Thank you. Anchor QEA, who I believe may be on the line right now. Thank you again for all the time and effort you guys have been putting on into this. Here's our contact information if you would like to know more. Hot off the press, the plan is available online right now. Our website is ocparks.com/ I like to call it the So Crisp. It's the SOCRCRSP, So Crisp for short. That's where you can get the plan. And we have some flyers if you're here in person today, and we'll try and get you a digital copy to share as well. Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Thank you, Susan and Makana. So Crisp is great, but you got to rename that Scrug. That's not working for me. All right, stick around. We're going to move to questions and answers now. And what I'd like to do with the agreement of the group is to first take questions from the members, then we'll ask if there are public comments, and then we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves. So let's start with who on the working group has a question that they would like to ask either Mark or the folks from Orange County. Not seeing any, I'll wet the whistle with a few from myself. For Mark, where are you getting your sand? Are you dredging it offshore in your littoral cell?
Mainly, we're taking it from, we have 3 major harbors. And so we bypass all our harbors. And then we have major rivers. So we're not taking any offshore yet. We have offshore sand deposits. We've analyzed them. They need to be updated. The analysis is somewhat outdated. But generally, we get them from these terrestrial sources still. We have opportunistic sources as well at different times, road projects, other things that have come along. But generally from the traditional sources you might imagine. We have 3 federally appropriated dredging projects, one for Santa Barbara Harbor, one for Ventura Harbor, and one for Channel Islands Harbor.
Do you have streams and rivers in your county like we do that have been dammed historically that could be restored to their natural flow to increase your sediment?
We do. And the big one you might know about and you've heard in the press over some years is the Matilaha Dam on the Ventura River. There's an active proposal and tens of millions of dollars raised already to take the Matilaha Dam out. It's an obsolete dam. We also, to our south, have the Ringe Dam in the Santa Monica Mountains where I live. And what's interesting about that is that the Ringe Dam sediment, it's about 750,000 cubic yards or more. 2/3 of it is still proposed to go to the landfill. Only 1/3 of it's proposed to go back into the nearshore littoral cell. And in the context of Ringe, because we share littoral cell dynamics, transport and fate dynamics, in this case, the Ringe Dam material will be trucked to Ventura Harbor. Well, this is a proposal, put on a barge and barged to the Malibu Pier. That is a very roundabout way to get sand to the beach where it was intended to go in any case. So we do have 2 major dams that have plans to come down, ecological restoration plans. And then we have other water purveying dams. We have Bradbury Dam behind Santa Barbara, which is on the San Ynez River, and we have Lake Cachuma, which is on the San Ynez River. Both those facilities have impacts on our sand supply in our region.
All right, thank you for that, Mark. And I apologize, I should have recognized that Mayor Aguirre has entered the room, and she's serves on the Coastal Commission as well, for people listening in so that she knows here. And welcome to you, Mayor Aguirre. Next question for Mark and for the Orange County folks. We're all looking at sand replenishment and doing nature-based solutions. How are you dealing with where you've got existing development right up and you don't have room for nature-based solutions? How are you addressing that? Mark first and then the Orange County folks.
I'm going to let Orange County go first.
Okay, Orange County.
Yeah, well, when it's right up against development, the nature-based project that we have planned is planning to extend that area further. So it's really sort of a cobble berm as your last line of defense, but you still need sand in front of it, as well as planted dunes behind it. So it will also increase the width of the beach. So I guess so that there's not quite as much squeeze between the property line and advancing. When we first looked into it, our property at Capistrano Beach is directly adjacent to about, I forget how many miles long, but a private HOA, homeowners association, where they're, of course, dealing with the same issues of retreat as we are. So, so we have decided to move it up a little bit further and share the property line with, we share a property line with Doheny State Beach, just in case there are any potential impacts. With this plan, there is quite a bit of monitoring involved. And so I think the idea is to see if that idea would be applicable to, other installations along the shoreline.
All right, thank you for that. Makana or Mark, would you like to add anything?
I was just going to quickly add to that same project at Capistrano Beach that it backs right up to the OCTA rail line, and then behind that is Coast Highway. So we have a lot of critical infrastructure right up against this beach. So this is a critical area for not only our beach and the recreation amenities it provides, but also for that critical infrastructure. So short term, we have the riprap. Midterm, it's the living shoreline. And then the long term, we're looking at a master plan process by 2029 for that beach itself.
All right, thank you for that. Mark, anything to add?
Well, just the same, some of the same strategies, obviously, and we have the same problem with the coastal squeeze where we don't have room to necessarily move facilities. I like McKenna's answer with regard to triggers and timing, because these are timing issues. In our own region, we have 2 jurisdictions working on shoreline master plans with living shoreline components. And some of the living shoreline have impacts, but only in the near term. They don't have impacts so much in the long term. So we're combining tactics and solutions and strategies to address short-term effects, midterm and long-term. And in the long term, we're looking at building out some of our beaches. You mentioned these offshore sand resources. Even in Carpinteria, I believe this is right in Carpinteria, which, as you know, is a very popular state and city beach. It's a living shoreline project. It's a beach nourishment project. It's potentially a sand retention projects. So you might think of them as, for lack of a better word, green groins or resilient reefs, some new kind of innovative ways in which we're experimenting with these projects. So it's a kit of parts. So it's protection and it's defense and it's also retreat, all kind of mixed in together with a larger term strategy that addresses the time component. And I think that's where we're going to go with these very kind of nuanced, sophisticated, short, medium, and long-term tactics and activities that we undertake.
Thank you, Mark. It all sounds very familiar to us down here in San Diego. And be sure to stick around. We're going to hear from Jamie Timberlake and the City of Oceanside on the innovative program they're doing that may be a benefit to all of us. One quick question for Mark in particular. How do you finance the JPA? Do your members pay dues or how do you deal with that?
Yes, our members pay dues. And because we're some small jurisdictions, Carpinteria at 16 and City of Point Winding 11,000 residents, we're undercapitalized as a JPA. And we suffer. We're like an undercapitalized small business. So we use our resources to leverage grants like everybody else does. It's a grants world. And we suffer under that economy because it's not very highly efficient. You already mentioned you chase 10 grants and you get 2 or 1 or all the experience you know here. But we have self-financing. It's not sufficient to do the job. And it's interesting that in South Orange County, they examined some of the same funding mechanisms that we've been examining and some of the same governance options. We're a JPA, Joint Powers Authority. We're not a special district. We've talked about the potential opportunity that special district may provide. I think you and SANDAG, you're a JPA, but you're also a POG. And you have much more elaborate and extensive dues structure than we do at Beacon, but we combine local finance with basically grant finance from the state and the feds.
All right, thank you for that. That also sounds vaguely familiar, the underfunded part of your comments. A couple more questions from me and then we'll open the floor up again. Do you have an equivalent of the Scripps Institute that we work closely with here? I know UCSB has an environmental collaborative, but how are you tapping into the science world, both in Orange County and in Beacon?
Lately, we've been able to sort of partner with UC Irvine. They have more of a hydraulics group, but also have been tapping into the coastal arena. So they've been a good partner with us on a lot of these studies now. But typically we've used sort of the science from, scripts and other areas.
I'll add to that. So UCI has the drone and satellite monitoring that they've been partnering with Dana Point to get funding. And then there's also Coastal Frontiers, who's consultant for City of San Clemente, who's doing transect studies. So carrying that up through the Oceanside Littoral Cell to really get a good picture of where those critical areas are for us has been instrumental.
That also sounds familiar. Those are the same groups that we're working with. Mark, did you want to add anything?
Well,
on
I
that?
just want to mention, yes, you mentioned UCSB. We partner with UCSB extensively, but we also partner with Cal State University Channel Islands. And Dr. Patch, who's the chair of the Environmental Studies Department at Cal State, is the chair of our Science Advisory Committee. And we have members of the Bryn School and the Marine Science Institute that also sit on our committee. Dr. Charles Lester, you all may know, former Coastal Commission chair. And then Jenny Dugan, who's been a coastal ecologist studying sandy beaches here in your region and ours for nearly 30 years. So we've tapped in very heavily to the science community to inform the advance of our plan, and then to help us figure out what are the best tools that we should be developing to support decisions. Because as you know, science can be arcane. Science has as many silos as we have in government, and we need them to come to us. We need to come together to discuss what is the best way to use the information to get the best decisions. And we haven't really worked that out yet. We're in the process of doing that.
Thank you for that. One final question for you, Mark. We heard from Orange County, you have railroad problems there. We know about it, San Clemente. We have railroad problems here. Do you have similar problems in the Beacon area?
Well, you all might know the area called the Rincon Parkway. That's the area north of Ventura as you come into Carpinteria and Santa Barbara. You've all been on that road. Highway 101 is elevated way up on the hillside now, but the railroad is right on the coast. And we have serious issues. Not as serious as yours, where we're going to tunnel under one of our towns yet. But as you know, the railroad is just very tight to the coast in our region. And you go on the Gaviota coast and it really does become apparent. There are trestles across 3 of our state park beaches. So we do have issues. I'll just mention this, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I mean it in a good way. We struggle to communicate effectively with the railroad community. For some reason, I don't know what it is, and you can all inform me because you're more experienced. We have a hard time.
Familiar to us too.
Well, we have a hard time dialoguing with the railroads. They just do not have a transparent process for their operations. And so we've flagged with them things that we think we should work together on, but we have yet to kind of make a deal. And one of the issues that was raised earlier, and that's opportunistic sand sources. We have a series of highway and railroad culverts. We have creeks blocked by active rail lines and highways. We'd like to have a system of maintenance for the excavation of those materials, because now it's just done when Malibu Canyon Road closes on a Thursday. They got to come in and take all the sediment. We need a better system to understand how to manage our real-time sediment opportunities. And the railroad and Caltrans are 2 of the biggest partners we could imagine to work with over time.
Well said. Thank you. Let's open it up. Anybody on the working group have an additional question for any of our speakers? We'll have a chance for discussion, but let's see, Tessa, do we have any public commenters on this topic?
There are no public comments.
All right, then. How about yes, Makana.
I just wanted to add one more plug. I mentioned the draft is available on our website. We also have a stakeholder meeting coming up next week. That's March 13th on Wednesday from 9 to 11. It will be in person at the Dana Point Sailing and Event Center. So if anyone feels like making a drive up to see what we're all about, we encourage you to stop in. Thanks.
And we can include all this information in the meeting follow-up email that I'll be sending out after today's meeting.
I see a hand up. Is there somebody in the public that wanted to make a public comment? Come on up to the podium. But come up to the podium so we can get you on the mic. Thank you.
And then I'll also need you to fill out a public speaker slip and turn it in to me before you leave.
Thank Mark for bringing up the growing concept.
I'm sorry, can you just please turn the microphone on?
There we go. Better. Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank Mark for bringing up the growing concept up there. And I wanted to ask the Orange County Parks people, with the success of the West Newport growing field, wondering if you're considering any type of aggressive sand retention structures, more than just the nature-based solutions that are being talked about.
So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Our first goal, though, is to get sand on the beach. Second step would be to retain it. Part of the reason why we're putting this huge collaborative together is so that we can discuss, placement and different opportunities. It's going to be difficult if, it comes up that, growing is best suited in front of this HOA. I mean, it just gets complicated. So yes, eventually, once we put the collaborative together, it's definitely on the table looking at retention opportunities.
All right. Thank you. And Dirk, be sure to fill out a speaker slip before you leave. Thank you. Okay, so we are at discussion. I'm going to invite Keith or Courtney or both to come up and comment on how do you feel collaboration is going? It sounds like there's collaboration going at SANDAG and there's collaboration going on in Orange County and at Beacon. Is there collaboration across all three, or is there something that we can do to improve that?
Well, first of all, thank you for coming down today, speakers, all the way from Santa Barbara and Ventura. Mark, thank you. And taking the train down here, thank you, Orange County folks. As you've seen, sand is not unique to our issue or area. And some of our issues, of course, go outside of our region. Remember, the Oceanside littoral saw goes all up to Point Harbor. So having Orange County Parks here and participating with our conversations just does nothing but help us out. I think we have a lot to learn from each other. I have to say, I am so surprised that we haven't, as an agency, invited our counterparts from the north to come join us and to expand upon their world, their knowledge, their lessons learned, and to share from what we've had with some of our lessons learned. I think there's some fundamental themes that are going through. We're all chasing the grant funding dollars. There's not enough grant funding dollars out there. And we're all looking for solutions for getting more stable source of sand and also funding to get that sand on the beaches. So there's lots of details there. My goal for this program going forward is to develop an inter-regional collaboration going from all the way from, Point Conception all the way to the border to Mexico, and having us kind of coordinate more. And so I'm really happy that you were down here today, and thank you very much for that. And Courtney, if there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, I just wanted to add that, we're looking at this as like a super regional approach. So we're excited to have our partners here today and for our members agencies here to be hearing how we are taking a different approach at looking at how we could do another regional program.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's very helpful to hear what you're doing. It's reassuring and sobering at the same time. We're all struggling with the same problems of eroding beaches. We're all looking for sand. We're all looking for money. We all have crisis projects. We all have infrastructure needs. And the more we can collaborate, the better we're going to solve all of that. And we have some additional things. I know Keith and I, we've talked about whether or not it's a good idea to maybe purchase our own dredge for this area to service beach replenishment. And perhaps that's something we could collaborate with Orange County and Beacon on. And I know that our federal elected officials who have their hands on the purse strings would greatly appreciate it if we came to them with coordinated requests for financing that covered all of these areas, so we're not competing with each other. So I think there's a lot of ground to collaborate, not just in sharing strategies and what's working and what isn't. But again, any other comments anybody wanted to make on all of this? If not, please stick around and we're going to invite the folks from Oceanside up to talk about their project. Jamie, are you in the house? Yes, you are.
Good afternoon. I'm Jamie Timberlake. I'm the Coastal Zone Administrator for the City of Oceanside. And I'll be giving you a brief update on our Rebeach Oceanside project that we've been working on since 2023. And I'll keep this kind of background a little brief so that we can get to the fun parts. Today, the update that I'm going to be providing is about the winning competition, the winner of the competition. So that winner has been approved by the City Council of Oceanside at the end of January. And so I'll be just discussing that concept and the next steps for this project. All right, so Rebeach began really in 2020 with a year-long feasibility study that was initiated to assess the long-term beach erosion problems that we've been experiencing and tried to determine a suite of solutions for for beach restoration. The feasibility study concluded that a high-quality source of sand should be identified to provide a more consistent sediment supply for our coast. Sounds familiar, right? And that this effort should be combined with a sand retention mechanism that could assist with retaining sand, because we regularly place sand on the beach from Oceanside Harbor dredging and also from regional beach sand projects 1 and 2, but we also see that sand leave our beaches pretty fast. With these recommendations in mind from the feasibility study, the city approved a contract in 2023 for the Phase 2 sand nourishment and sand retention pilot project, with Rebeach fitting under the engineering analysis and design task. All of the studies and data gathered in the feasibility study, that contributes to the basis of the competition. So fast track to the initiation of the Rebeach competition, city staff and the project team decided to host an international design competition to see what kinds of new ideas were already being tested in the world that we could borrow from. The primary goals of Rebeach Oceanside are to design and implement a retention feature that will restore and maintain sand along the coast while providing additional benefits, and increase the efficiency and extend the benefits of any and all sand nourishment efforts that the city, region, or federal government carry forward. And as this is a pilot project, we expect the results of the piloted effort to inform the region about new ways of responsibly retaining sand. So key components of the competition included the creation of a jury and setting up a robust design criteria that helped guide the competition and guide the competitors. The jury was comprised of 15 voting and non-voting community advocates and regional experts that worked in an advisory role throughout the competition, with the voting members actually deciding on the winning design. The jury included representatives from the local surf community, advocates for sustainable sand management, current and former staff from the California Coastal Commission, and regional representation from coastal cities to the south, amongst others. Once the jury was formed, we collaboratively created the design criteria as the backbone for the competing design concepts, addressing things like physical performance and costs. The city held 3 design rounds to get to the final ultimate design, and with each design round culminating with a public workshop, all of which were very well attended. The city did a lot of press and outreach as well, and we spoke at each one of the councils for all of each of the cities to the south of Oceanside. I'm hoping this is actually not the first time you've seen us. So after the final design round and 3rd public workshop, the jury deliberated and unanimously approved the living speed bumps design concept, which was brought forward by International Coastal Management of Australia. This design embodies a suite of solutions designed to address erosion both on the back beach and on the sandbars in the nearshore space. On the back beach, short artificial headlands will help to stabilize the dry sand beaches. These headlands are expected to jut out approximately 150 feet off the back of the beach. They mimic the existing pier abutment, which maintains a relatively stable beach north and south of the pier. And in the offshore areas, we'll be designing and constructing an artificial reef, which will be placed at approximately 40-foot depth and 900 feet offshore. This reef will provide some energy dissipation, which will encourage the development of sandbars in the lee of the structure and lessen wave attack on the dry sand beach areas. Just as the back beach is supplemented with onshore sand nourishment, so will the nearshore areas. So nearshore nourishment, which is commonly practiced in Australia and not so commonly practiced here, that will be part of this effort as well. Nearshore nourishment takes advantage of natural coastal processes and allows placed sand to naturally make its way back to the shoreline. So citing the original objectives of Rebeach, the retention structure is expected to provide a myriad of additional benefits for accessing and experiencing the coast. And these are just some of the examples that we've come up with to date. The location of the pilot project, which is yet to be determined, will help determine what kinds of benefits we'll be adding to the headlands. And as part of the next steps of the project, we'll be returning to the community to get feedback on programming for the headlands. So thus far, we see new access paths, exercise areas, rinse showers, potentially some native plantings tying back with the development of dunes on the back beach. These are some of the things that the additional benefits that can come from this structure. So final engineering and design is expected to take 1.5 to 2 years. And during this time, we'll be refining the design and determining where the project will be sited. Additionally, we'll be developing our monitoring program, which will further establish baseline conditions and inform the creation of our adaptive management plan. And all these refinements will be included in the environmental compliance portion of the project, which will be initiated in year 1, but the bulk of which will happen in year 2. And our goal is to arrive at a shovel-ready project by 2026. And with the actual construction following successful fundraising and also the completion of pre-construction baseline monitoring. So public and stakeholder comments submitted throughout the Rebeach competition highlighted the need for solutions for all of Oceanside's coastline, in particular South Oceanside. So we're going to be doing a robust siting analysis that will objectively evaluate potential locations for the pilot project. This analysis will aid the city in making the decision about where it will be sited. And these 3 color blocked areas are the segments that we'll be considering for that siting analysis. The siting analysis is based first and foremost on the performance of the concept. So we want to get a concept out there that we can successfully implement and monitor. The analysis will also look at land ownership, the ability to manage sand within and around the pilot location, constructability and maintenance considerations, and the potential for biological resources, surf resources, or other beach area impacts. Draft findings from this analysis will be presented at the next Rebeach Public Workshop, which is expected to be this summer. So major design elements, costing, and the monitoring program will all be refined following the determination of where the pilot project will be sited. Modeling is going to assist us in determining the size, shape, depth, and orientation of the reef. And we'll also be evaluating materials for construction for both the reef and the headland at that time. Nailing down these elements will help us refine the cost. Initial costs were roughly estimated at around 30 to 50 million, but a robust cost estimate and beach valuation is a deliverable for this phase, and we will be, and it will be key to acquiring grant funding. The city sees a natural integration with Regional Beach Sand Project 3 and Rebeach during the construction phase, pending both of the project schedules. And we'd like to we'd like the project to be identified as a sand retention pilot project for the region. Combining our efforts may bolster the overall attractiveness of the project to state and federal funders, and it will eliminate the competition for funds. Our current baseline shoreline monitoring evaluates, our shoreline monitoring program evaluates sand volume along consistent transects, which builds off the shoreline monitoring program led by SANDAG. Our community science monitoring is something that will be ongoing, and it has been since 2020. This is led by Save Oceanside Sand and Scripps. To supplement this data set, we've added UAV monitoring and nearshore bathymetric surveys before and after storm events. And we're also adding in a robust surf monitoring program. So we're beginning talks with Surfline and Surfrider and Griffith University out of Queensland to determine how best to conduct baseline monitoring for surfable waves. And additionally, in addition to all this other monitoring that we're doing, we're going to be focused on a new beach attendance program, which will help define how Rebeach may change beach use around Oceanside's coastline. So the Rebeach winning concept requires sand nourishment in both the nearshore and onshore areas. So we're deep in the development of a city-led sand nourishment program. For the annual harbor dredging that happens from the Army Corps, they currently place sand using a combination of above ground temporary pipes and earth moving equipment. And the city of Oceanside is now looking to refine the delivery of that material as well as future dredge material by conducting a light feasibility study on whether we can permanently bury a pipeline that we could hook up to a dredge to deliver sand to specific areas along the pipeline. And ICM, International Coastal Management, the winner of the design competition, they actually have real world experience in this type of sand delivery system. The sand we get from the harbor is not the greatest sand. It's very fine grained. So we're hoping to do we are doing an offshore investigation for within the immediate area of our coastline to see if deposits of high quality sand exist in a nearby area where we could more readily get that sand. And these offshore investigations actually kick off next week. So finding a high quality source of sand and determining an efficient sand delivery system, these are important parts to our adaptive management program. The adaptive management plan that we'll be developing through this next phase will describe the methods of monitoring waves, water levels, shoreline change, sand movement, and surfing resources, and will also include triggers for adaptive management actions, like adding additional sand to a specific area if a reduction in beach volume is observed. We've described some potential triggers on this slide, but these are just conceptual. Both the adaptive management program and associated triggers will be coordinated with the region as well as with the regulatory agencies once we get to that phase of the project. And here's a basic schedule for the next 2 years. We have a lot of work to do. So by no means does the end of the competition mean that you're gonna not be hearing from Oceanside. We'll be continuing to give you updates as we move through this phase of the project. And so in conclusion, I just want to give a big thank you to the project team, which is GHD, Resilient Cities Catalyst, and now International Coastal Management from Australia. I also want to thank the finalists in the competition, which is Deltaris and MVRDV, and SCAPE and ESA Consulting. They made this a very tough decision on the jury. And also we had many collaborators. So thank you to the Shoreline Preservation Working Group for helping us continue to do this regional coordination. It's really important. And of course, big shout out to Chair Warden, who has been a member of our voting jury and integral to the regional communication of this project.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Let me ask Deputy Mayor Keim, it's in your city. If you'd like to make a comment, the floor is yours.
Again, I want to reiterate what Jamie said and thank everyone who's participated in this. Obviously, it's one of our biggest challenges in the city, but some of the things we deal with lately in politics is pretty divisive, and this has been something that's actually brought a lot of people together on both sides of the aisle. So it's been a very positive experience, and I especially want to thank you, Dwight, for how much time you've taken, all the different workshops, and how much you've put into it, and how thoughtful you've been. It's I think this is a great jumping off point for the whole county, so that we don't have to wait 30 years for an Army Corps project. We can start taking control of our coastline ourselves. And I think this is going to be a good example. That's the ultimate goal for me, is to have this as something, a pilot that can be used Encinitas, Carlsbad, Del Mar. As you look at those heat maps of where the sand's leaving, it's something that we can fine tune and make it work for each city, and we can all be partners on it and have coastal resilience for the next 50, 60, 70 years. Something that Mark said in his presentation about sea level rise adaptation, but having that sand to give you the space. We can't do dunes. We can't do these things unless we have the sand to start. So I think this will give us all of that option. And It's also giving us a different chance to look at beaches as the infrastructure they are. You know, we have 2/3 of our coasts are no dry sand right now. And we have $1 billion of public and private infrastructure right there west of Pacific Street. We have 500 million of tourism spending, but it's also our most important recreational resource for our city. And I mean, if we get to do a project that's $100 million, it gives us 5 decades and my daughter and her kids to enjoy the beaches. I mean, that money, that's how much we're going to pay for a new police station. So I mean, looking at those, that infrastructure project and the return on your investment you get, I'm looking forward to what we can do as a region to really prioritize that resource. But thanks again for everyone. And you know, I see Brian Leslie from GHG. I mean, this has really been a team effort, and it's something that hasn't been done on the West Coast. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But also, one thing that's important, and from the beginning, this was kind of something that I had started, the initial project that recommendations were groins, and we've been working on communication, and that's a big priority for me. So if there's concerns, or you feel free to reach out. We want this to really be an inclusive process and do it as a team. So thank you for the time, though.
Thank you for that. Any questions from anybody on the working group for Jamie or the team? Yes, Mayor Geary.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a quick comment and then a question. I just want to commend the City of Oceanside for their innovation and all of their work around this. At my request, the Coastal Commission recently hosted the Coastal Commission meeting in Oceanside. So Deputy Mayor Keim and Mayor Sanchez welcomed us into their chambers, and she gave me actually a tour of some of these impacted areas that are so significantly impacted, especially now that we are having these types of storm events. So it could not have come at a better time. I think it could be potentially a model to be replicated elsewhere, especially South County. Maybe. But I did have a question. It's a very simple question, but I'm just curious. It's relating to your voting member panel and the groups that you selected. How did you go about selecting, you know, who would be members from the community to participate?
We asked a select number of different groups if they had someone that would want to be representing on the jury, and then we had them apply. So they had to be okay with the time commitment and all of the things that we were asking from them, which was participation in each one of the public workshops and making sure they'd be present at the final jury deliberation. And then there was a distinction that each individual could make, whether they felt they were a voting member or whether they felt they should be a non-voting member. And so for the most part, everyone who applied was accepted. And also, we were fine with what everyone decided, whether they were voting or non-voting. We let them make that decision.
Okay, got it. Thank you. No, that's helpful. And then when it comes to the surf monitoring, what happens if indeed the surf is being impacted? Is there a way to adjust so that could be addressed?
So, of course, yes. So part of our adaptive management program is going to address surf resources. So we're starting the baseline monitoring now. We're starting talks with Surfline and trying to determine if we can get some backlog or historical data on surf resources, and that can come from a number of different sources, and it'll all be determined based on where the pilot project ends up. But so part of the adaptive management program is to establish these baseline conditions first, and then see if our project has any possible impacts. In that whole adaptive management program, we'll have all these different triggers. So if let's say we start to see impacts to surf resources, then we can do a number of different things. We can add more sand. We can let some of the sand dissipate and not add more sand for a little while. We can knock down a structure if we need to. So there's a number of triggers that we'll be developing through that adaptive management program that will make sure to address that.
Well, that's great. And there's nowadays so much data compared to 10, 20 years ago. I think.
Right.
So that's great because, these types of projects, one way or another in the past, at least in our experience in Imperial Beach, they've had impacts on surf resources. And it's always challenging, right? Because people are used to surfing in their spots and sometimes those move. And
If you
Can't
look at
create
the
a
photo,
stir.
sorry,
No, it's okay.
apologize. If you look at the photo that's up there now, that's the before picture. That's Wisconsin Street. That was the former surf PE area for Oceanside High School. And so, parents would drop their kids off. They'd go do surf PE there. That's a place that has lost its surf resources just because there's no more sand. The sandbars have also eroded. So where we implement the pilot project will be in a place that has had that loss of surf resources.
That's great. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you,
All
Chair.
right, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kime, you wanted to comment on that?
Just want to add on the surf. So Jamie's surfer. I've been a lifelong surfer in Oceanside. I've grown up surfing the places that we don't have sand, and without having the sand and losing the sandbars, the surf is the worst I've ever seen it. So it's deep all the way up until the revetment. So you have a mushy kind of, a mushy backwash. It's for me, I don't think it could get worse. So I think this will, how this works, it will, and it will hopefully improve it, but it's amazing how the lack of sand there because we have a straight coast, it just has destroyed our really peaky beach breaks that we had south of the pier.
All right, thank you for that. Let me ask questions. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a huge, impressive project. I had I guess a financial question. I was wondering where did the funding come from that got you to the decision in January? And then where will the funds come for the next 2-year project? And then I know you mentioned it briefly, but where do you anticipate when you go, full bore, where do you anticipate getting the funds for the complete project construction?
So those great questions. The great thing about this whole project is that the design competition, as well as the permitting of the project and the final design and specifications, it's all in one contract. So that one large contract was approved in January 2023. And so we're moving through all of these tasks through this one contract so that we don't have any interruptions. So that's why we can state things like we expect to have a shovel-ready project by 2026. As far as construction funding goes, we're going to get funding from a lot of different places. That's the tactic that we're going to be taking. So we'll be applying for grants. Hopefully we get some interest from state and county and federal officials, and that parts of this program can be supplemented from all different areas. And then the city is also looking into its own new funding sources so that we can have continual management of the beach be part of this whole thing.
Okay, thanks. And so who funded, did the city fund the part that's getting you through 26 or?
Okay, yes, yes,
that's a lot of money, isn't it? How can I ask how much that cost you or?
The phase 2 sand nourishment pilot project, the overall project was funded by ARPA, American Recovery Program funds.
Oh, okay.
And it's a $2.6 million contract.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike and Jamie. Stick around. Tessa, let me ask, do we have any public comments on this topic?
There are no public comments.
Okay, let me start off the discussion then with a couple of comments of my own. Having served on the jury was a very interesting and rewarding experience. First, I think to Oceanside's credit, they started out with a greenfield proposal that generated a lot of pushback from neighboring cities concerned about the impact on downstream sand sources. And they rebooted and started with this international competition to advertise. And they got proposals from the Netherlands and from Australia and from a US company, amongst others, that really were state of the art. And then they had this robust process that I would encourage Mark and the Orange County folks to look at hard when you're trying to build community consensus for what you're doing. The combination of the outreach to their local community and creating a jury that was full of lots of local interests and also neighboring cities, including me as one of them, and also experts, was really a way to build the consensus that came out of this. And when we unanimously recommended the ICM project, it was unanimously endorsed by the city of Oceanside And that's kind of unheard of when you're talking about something this complex and this controversial and where that many stakeholder interests have competing interests that we all agreed on how to do it. So something worked in the process. A couple of comments on the project itself that I wanted to just note. The design of the combination of the reef and the onshore mini headlands is designed not to stop the sand flow, but to slow it down approximately 20 to 30%. So it will increase retention on the beach, but it will also continue the flow downstream. And a key requirement for the project is that there not be a negative impact to downstream cities. Now, you may remember we had a presentation from Dr. O'Reilly about how the sand actually moves in this littoral cell. And as Murphy's Law, everything is more complicated than it should be. The historical understanding has been that sand predominantly moved north to south. And Bill O'Reilly, who's the guru of this stuff from Scripps, he now says, well, that might not actually be true. The predominant movement might be south to north, but more importantly, it moves in subcells and in a more complicated fashion. Some of it's offshore and some of it isn't. So this whole issue of how this new project, this pilot program, is going to impact downstream cities is going to be a robust topic for discussion. But I think the way they've designed it is going to do it properly. It's a pilot program. It's designed to not disrupt the downstream flow. It's going to be monitored, and the monitoring is not by ICM that is doing the project. The monitoring is by GHD, and that's a big deal. It's not the Fox monitoring its own project. It's the city's independent consultant monitoring it. It will be adapted as it's needed to make sure it works. And if it flops, it's built into the program, it will be removed. And I think this is why the Coastal Commission, and I don't want to speak for them because they haven't weighed in on this yet, but their executive director, Kate Huckelbridge, they have a pretty well-established program of, they're kind of skeptical of groin projects, and they don't have a strict policy that you can't ever do one, but I don't think they've approved one in decades. But Kate Huckelbridge's comment was this kind of innovative experimental pilot program is the right way to do it. So I think they're looking good on that front. And that means for us, one of the axes that I've ground that I want to encourage all of you to support is, Jamie mentioned it briefly, but it's really important to bring the Oceanside project into the SANDAG Rebeach #3 project as the pilot program. Rebeach 3 contemplates having a sand pilot program. And if it's there, then it'll be discussed here where all the cities and the ports and everybody that has a stake in this is at the table. And because if we don't recognize we're dreaming that Carlsbad wants sand and Del Mar wants sand, and various people want it, and we're all looking at the same pots of limited money to fund that. And if we don't collaborate and work on it in an organized way, we're going to compete for sand, and we're going to compete for money, and we're going to make our elected representatives like Mike Levin light their hair on fire because we're not coming to them asking for support and money in an organized way. And the way to achieve that is by marrying Oceanside's project with SANDAG's Rebeach 3. And I think that's going to happen. So I'm excited about the project. We will look forward to updates as you go along. And my final comment is one of my other hats I wear is I'm the San Diego representative to the League of California Cities Coastal Cities Group, which is all the coastal cities. And believe it or not, there are 61 cities in California that have a piece of the coastline. And in talking to that group, all of their reaction is, oh my God, Oceanside's doing this cool thing. Yahoo, we want to know all about that because we've got those problems too. It's not just us. It's not just Beacon. It's not just Orange County. It's Pacifica. It's Humboldt. It's up and down the state. So as I've told Jamie many times, it's something you should feel proud about, but it's probably going to give you a bit of sweaty armpits because you are the tip of the spear. You are not just trying this for Oceanside and San Diego, but everybody in the world realistically is watching and hoping this succeeds and works out the way it should. So we are ahead of time. Anybody have another comment or a question they wanted to make? I'll then finish by saying the two things that the jury recommended that the Oceanside Council included in addition to the recommendation from their staff was, one, to do more robust surf monitoring. That's really an important issue. And one of the cool aspects of this project is if you put sand on the beach as part of beach replenishment. It has to be good quality stuff and it's more expensive. This project is proposing to put deposits in the water in the nearshore area to work in conjunction with the reef. And the expectation is that it will build sandbars that, if it's done right, can have great surfing potential. And you don't need the high quality sand to put it in the water, and it's not as expensive. And ICM, they've done this project pretty much exactly on the Gold Coast of Australia. They put in these speed bump headlands and they've primed it and done offshore reef, and it works there. Now, we had a lot of questions for them, and people on the jury who have more technical experts than me were all over them about, convince us that the west coast of California is so similar that it's going to work here. And I think they did a pretty good job. But one of the reasons why it's just a pilot is we won't know for sure until we try it. And if the pilot works wherever Oceanside decides to put it, then the plan is they can scale it up and do more of the beach and eventually get their whole beach back. And the rest of us who are watching and saying, thank God, Oceanside is doing this on their own nickel, we will take advantage of it and use it in our communities too. So with that, anything else anybody wants to bring up? If not, I have one item I wanted to suggest for a future agenda item. Some of you may be following it, maybe you're not. The Ocean Protection Council, which is the state umbrella organization that does the sea level rise science work, that they published their sea level rise guidance in 2018, and that's what the Coastal Commission uses and all the state agencies use. They have just this year released an update to that, and it's just closed the public comment period Monday of this week. And so I have suggested to our staff, if they think it's appropriate, that maybe at our next meeting, we can have an update from our staff or a speaker who really understands this stuff to explain to us what it means. But it's pretty dramatic. The new guidance says, for example, that they're now predicting, instead of 3 feet of sea level rise by 2050, there's predicting 0.8 feet of sea level rise by 2050. And they're predicting less rise by 2100 too. They've said very candidly up front, though, this whole issue of the ice sheets melting in Greenland and the Antarctic and all that, the science is so uncertain on it that they can't reliably use that to predict what's going to happen. So that's a big wild card. And the historical 2018 guidance that the Coastal Commission used had what they call the H++ scenario in it, which was the most high risk, less than 1% chance of occurring. And the new guidance says, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to focus on the mid-range and the mid-high range. And they've coupled that with probability analysis of what is the probability that these things are going to actually happen. And the main issue that our coastal cities group has been discussing with OPC is, because the new guidance still identifies a high scenario that could happen and says that for critical infrastructure, you should still use that. So we're discussing with them, and I hope they're going to update it in this to be a little bit more clear. Okay, the high scenario, which is the worst case, that's important for everybody to know, to understand the science and know that it could happen. But it's a different matter. What are you going to use for planning your projects and actually building things? And the focus there is going to be more on what is the higher probability, what's in the mid to mid-high range, but that you won't necessarily have to use that very high worst scenario in all circumstances. And the working group that we have includes coastal staffers and 2 coastal commissioners and our local cities group. And we've filed a joint comment on that to clarify that. And so I think OPC is likely to do it. Other piece of good news, one of the things we asked them was, they have this 25 state agency working group that works on all of this. We said, how about a seat at the table? One for the cities and one for the counties, to where the League of Cities could designate one rep and the California State Association of Counties too. And they were very receptive to that. So going forward, it looks like we will have a city and a county seat. But that's a quick overview of something that's super important, and I know just enough to be dangerous. So Keith, did you want to comment? Is this appropriate for us to have an agenda item to learn more about it?
Yeah, we've discussed this before, the process sea level guidance. So it's appropriate to have an update brought to this group, and we can do that at your next meeting.
Great. All right, final chance. Anybody got anything else they wanted to bring up? All right, thank you all for coming. I think the presentations will all be available on the SANDAG website if anybody wanted to see the Oceanside one or the Orange County one or the Beacon one. All right, thanks. We are adjourned.